Hello, my name is Matthew, and I always read before I go to sleep. And it's the majority of the time, it's the big book that I'm reading at the time. But I'm not always in the mood at the end of the day to get into the book that I'm reading. And sometimes I need a break or a diversion, and I have to read before I go to sleep. So I've started the habit of having specific bedtime reading material. And like at the moment, I'm reading the Diary of Samuel Johnson, but in conjunction with that, I've also been reading the Diary of Samuel Pepys. They're um, they're diary entries. They're in little chunks. They're more digestible, and sometimes I'm in the mood for that. I don't want to get into picking up the big Samuel Johnson book, and that's just been a habit of mine. So I just went through my shelves and I pulled off a whole bunch of books that for me are bedside reading material. These are books that I've fallen asleep with over the years and read over and over and over again, and loved and enjoyed. And I pulled out a whole bunch of books. I'll see if I can get through all of them, but I thought I would just show them to you. And they are sort of a specific thing. So they're mostly short stories or diaries or letters or just things that are in smaller chunks. I try not to read multiple novels at the same time. So the complete fairy tales of Oscar Wilde, they are children's stories written for adults, and they're charming and lyrical and funny and just so great to read and return to. Recently I've been reading, I was just reading this earlier this year, The Little World of Don Camillo by Giovanni Guarasci. It's about a priest who gets in trouble in town and then has arguments with Jesus. The 9 Stories of Salinger. Short stories are so great to read at the end of the day. And yeah, you can just get through this thing in a week. The short stories of Edgar Allan Poe, ghost stories at the end of the night in bed in the dark. It's great. And they're so satisfying. I love Edgar Allan Poe's language and the way that he can build an atmosphere just in the first paragraph every time. And they're psychologically insightful and can be frightening. Maupassant. We've been talking about Maupassant on this channel for a while, and this is just so perfect. If I have a whole afternoon to sit down and read, if I'm going to read for 3 hours at a stretch, I don't really want to blow through 20 Maupassant stories. So to have them at the end of the day, you'll read one, you're going to read another one. They kind of stick with you and become more memorable. It's the same thing with Sherlock Holmes. They're fantastic bedtime stories. I think Sherlock Holmes I think it might be my earliest memory of being up way too late in bed and checking how many pages the next story is and thinking like, oh, I can read that one. I can read that before I go to sleep. And you just chug through the book unintentionally. I'm a fan of Donald Barthelme. They're just so strange, and they're just really great little short stories. I don't hear much about Donald Barthelme. Dorothy Parker. This is great. I love Dorothy Parker. Just acerbic, and witty, and funny. Her dialogue is snappy. Stories are just really satisfying. And then diaries and letters and things like that. I have the diaries of Kafka and then the letters of Kafka. Just heartbreaking. The letters of Van Gogh. This is one of my favorite little volumes. It's crushingly beautiful. And there's, even though it's melancholic and sad and deeply depressing, there's such a sense of optimism, especially in Van Gogh's view of the world, the lens in which he saw the world. It's heartbreaking and beautiful. The letters of Madame de Savine, I don't know how to pronounce that. Just a woman in the 17th century, like an aristocratic, high society woman that wrote these gorgeous, funny letters to all the people, like La Rochefoucauld she's writing to, and her friends and family. Just great. Here's a bunch of books that I've been reading this year, and we've talked about a little bit. The letters of Flaubert and Turgenev, and the letters of Flaubert and George Sand. The amount of insight these correspondences have given me is just amazing, and how they can paint portraits and worlds with like offhanded letters just right off the top of their minds is amazing to me. The letters of Proust, I have not gotten into this yet, but this will be a bedside book. You just read entries. You just read an entry. There's no obligation or a sense that you have to finish the book. You can open up to any page. This is kind of particular to me, but Plutarch's Lives, his biographies. This is the Dryden edition. At the very least, this is something that for some people will put you to sleep, but I just love it. And they're 40, 50 pages. Sometimes they can be a little long for one night, but yeah, it's these biographies, the lives of these people, it's really interesting. And just reading one a night makes something like this much less daunting. They kind of stick with you because you spend time with each one. I'm not a big poetry fan at the end of the day. I don't like reading poetry at night. One of the few exceptions is Baudelaire. This slim little book I've read over and over again, and I just love it. And then other kind of things, the essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can just flip open to any page and read an essay on so many different things, and I love how thoughtful it's as if he writes about ideas instead of particulars, people or places. He has a broader scope, and at the end of the day, I love reading these things and thinking like, this is how I would want to be thinking, having kind of deeper thoughts. I don't really have deeper thoughts, so I love reading about other people that have deep thoughts. Speaking of which, I have another kind of reader copy, but this is Montaigne, the Essays of Montaigne. And this is another just great example. If you put this on your nightstand, this is how it works for me anyway. I just march through the pages. It's so enjoyable. And if I'm only thinking about reading an essay or just a few pages, I find that I want to read the next essay. I want to read a few more pages. And all of a sudden, something that seems at the beginning like so hard to get through, you read it and reread it and open up to random pages, and you have favorites, different essays that you want to go back to. Um, yeah, I mean, Montaigne has been a good friend of mine. And then similar to that, it's kind of back to fiction, but the Decameron by Boccaccio. This is a new translation, which um, I hope to read by the end of the year. I don't know, but yeah, like these stories. If you think that you're going to sit down and try to read this thing, and it it might just feel so daunting. But if you only plan on reading one a night, you're going to read another one, and then another one, and then another one. And it goes on and on and on. And when that obligation, that sense of having to get through it goes away, all of a sudden, uh, you're so much more present in the book. And the Decameron, you read one story, and you want to read all the rest of them. And each one, they're not all fantastic, but a lot of them are. Laughing out loud, and they're just great. Now that I'm holding it, I think I might want to read this tonight. So I mean, that's just a whole bunch of books. This is kind of giving you an idea of how I think about reading at the end of the day, wrapping up like my wrapping up the outside world and sitting down and concentrating and seeing the kind of things that through the years have given me so much enjoyment and pleasure. And there's been so much more, but when I went through my shelves, these are the things that stood out immediately. And all of this to say that I'm also so interested in hearing what kind of bedtime books interest you. Are there certain books that you always have on your nightstand? Things that you keep going back to, or a certain kind of book, like I mentioned, like diaries or letters or short stories, or do you not do that any of that at all? If you have a different bedtime reading routine, whatever you want to whatever you want to say. If you're interested, leave me a comment. I'd be interested in hearing. But just a whole bunch of books about what I kind of like to read at the end of the night. So leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching.